Welcome to the desk of the Executive Director at Back Bay Mission. Glad to have you here. We're not at my desk again, yay. I don't really like sitting at my desk that often. Yeah, feel like a principal when I do. Is that okay to say that, Kevin? Okay, good. But we're here today with Sig from northern Wisconsin, a beautiful, beautiful and amazing place. Filled with water and trees and vacation homes and vacation spots. And cheese curds.
And crazy tourists.
Yes, and crazy tourists, right. Now, I was one of those crazy tourists. Although I lived in central Wisconsin, but then I lived in Milwaukee for some time. So Sig is a frequent flyer here at Back Bay Mission. And you've been coming here for how long? Sig?
Since 2009.
Since 2009. Wow. That's a long time.
Sometimes twice a year.
Yeah.
Mostly once a year.
Okay. And what was your first experience like here? And when was that? And how did you end up here?
First experience was the end of January, beginning of February of 2009. We came down with another church group out of St. Germain, Wisconsin. There was approximately 35, 37 of us. We came down and they were still rehabbing houses from Katrina. And there was still a lot of visible damage, but I had decided that I wanted to do mission work a long time ago, but only wanted to do mission work in the United States. I felt that we need to do it here at home first, and after we get all our problems solved in the United States, then I'll go elsewhere. And we haven't succeeded in that.
Succeeded, no.
So we keep coming back because Back Bay Mission has opened our eyes to the needs of everyday people. And it helps fill the void that we have as everyday people.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. Well, it's interesting, as I was driving in, I believe yesterday morning, our Mississippi Public Radio had a clip on quotes from the presidents in our history that all talked about eradicating poverty in America. And just as what you said, this has affected you, it's kind of showed you kind of what it's like for real people, because what Back Bay does is we really work with people living in poverty, and most of the homes that you're working on and rehabbing, it's folks who live in poverty, who are challenged and can't do those repairs themselves, and we want to give them a good, sustainable home, right?
Correct.
And a good shelter over their heads. And it's interesting because you said, you know, we haven't done that yet here in America, solve the problems, and it's interesting to hear the fact that all presidents throughout time in this country have said we're going to eradicate poverty, and poverty is still with us. And of course, there is one of our great spiritual teachers, Jesus, who said, "You will always have the poor among you." So, you know, that probably is true, and I think it's a reality. So tell us what it's like in your neck of the woods.
In our neck of the woods, right now, we have a temperature probably of about 36 degrees because we're having a heat wave.
And it's going to be 70-something here today, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But
when we left home, it was 4 degrees. And probably 4 or 5 feet of snow on the ground.
Wow.
But the weather in northern Wisconsin is just the total polar opposite of here. And as I've talked to you this week, we have homelessness too. But we have people that will freeze to death in our homelessness. We don't have very many shelters. We have very few outreach programs because we're a rural area. We are sparsely populated and our services are sparse. We have a large elderly population. We have some VA population, but in the last, I'd say, 5 to 10 years, we have developed a more transient homeless population. We have a drug problem. There's a direct line to the area from Chicago and Milwaukee. Drugs come directly from the border of Mexico. We have a fentanyl overdose problem. I work ambulance. We've developed a large overdose problem in our Native American population on the reservations. The elders have set up that if you have a known drug problem, you can't stay on the reservation. They're now removing those people from the reservation till they get their drug problems under control. So, I mean, we have the same problems that you do in the city. We just don't quite have the density of it.
Yeah. Well, especially because I think in rural areas, people who are homeless or unsheltered often hide better, so to speak. And it's easier to hide in rural areas.
Yes.
And in rural areas, you know, families that have to rely on others to house them in kind of their families or their friendship circles, they burn those bridges too.
Right.
So which reservation, are you close to Lac du Flambeau reservation?
We're close to Lac du Flambeau. Mm-hmm. We're close to Lac Vieux Desert,
yeah.
Mole Lake. So we have quite a diversity of tribes up in our area. Chippewa, Potawatomi, you know,
yeah.
there's Mohican, there's lots of tribes up there. And they are a very fluid people. And they will go from reservation to reservation. It doesn't have to be just a Chippewa or a specific, they just move.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that because we never really talked about the reservations up in northern Wisconsin. When I was working for the Wisconsin Health Department, we did outreach on the reservations when it came to HIV and sexually transmitted diseases and injection drug use.
Yes.
And it was usually through the elders that we did that work because you kind of have to enter those communities through the elders.
Correct.
And gain trust. Obviously, right? Because we've had this difficult history, right? So historically, yeah. So you're an EMT,
yes.
And do you actually work on the reservations too?
Not as much anymore, but yes, I've worked on both the Lac Vieux Desert and the Lac du Flambeau reservations. I know quite a few of the people that live there. Mm-hmm. I grew up with them. I grew up up there.
Yeah.
I understand their problems, but instead of thinking of them separate, they have the same problems we do. It's just how it's perceived.
Yep, you're right. How it's perceived in the stories we create.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about your EMT work. Well, one thing that Sig does for us when she comes down here is does kind of training for us, so we get our certification. Share a little bit about the work that you do, because that's admirable, amazing work because you're saving lives.
Been in EMS since I was 18 years old, so 1975, when I was just a bright young thing.
Yeah.
I took my first EMT class, got my license, and have through the years gone every level. So I started as an EMT, got my EMT intermediate, got my EMT 95, got my paramedic, got my critical care paramedic, and I have flight paramedic also.
Wow.
I worked on critical care transport for almost 18 years and decided that I wanted to go back to 911, and so I now do 911 ambulance in Eagle River, which is approximately 20 miles from where I live.
And Eagle River is a charming resort community in the summer.
Yes.
Spring, fall, winter too, actually. When
Yeah.
I learned to cross-country ski up there and snowshoe.
The population in the winter can be extraordinarily large because of the snowmobiles that come in, and because this year we had good snow decent temperatures, we had an overwhelming influx of snowmobilers. Up until today, the trail's closed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because this past week, we had a high of 50 degrees, and like I said, today it's supposed to be like 35, 36. So the trails have disintegrated. It happens when snow melts.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. That was a part of the culture when I lived in central Wisconsin, like Stevens Point, Wausau. The areas I was serving with AIDS Resource, it was fascinating because there was a snowmobile culture. And on the weekends, they couldn't wait to get out of the county health department, Marathon County Health Department, offices to get on their snowmobiles and go bar to bar.
It's where the trails go.
It's where the trails go, bar to bar up in Wisconsin, right in northern Wisconsin, or just in central Wisconsin.
Highest per capita bar per people in the whole country.
Well, and that's where I remember, and then the reports would come out, right, which is kind of a sad thing, of who crashed their snowmobile, right? Because I'm sure that's when you were called on as EMTs, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
We've had quite a few snowmobile accidents this year. In our county, we have had only 3 fatalities, if you can say only.
Yeah.
But the problem is, the trails are 8 feet wide. The sleds go 140 miles an hour coming out of the crate without any tweaking. And you put an inexperienced rider on a sled with that much power, and trees have not learned how to move.
You're right. Yeah, that's for sure. I only got on one a few times, but I certainly never pushed it very fast. I was pretty slow.
Well, consider 140 miles an hour on an 8-foot trail between trees, and hoping that you have brakes.
Yeah.
Combination does not always bode well, especially when you add alcohol to the mix.
Right, when you've been going bar to bar, for sure. Yeah. Well, it's an interesting culture. Everywhere you live, there's a culture around some sort of entertainment or what people really enjoy to do. You know, here on the coast of Mississippi, I doubt that a lot of people have ever experienced a snowmobile. Jet skis, yes, right, on the water.
I would imagine.
Yep, quite different, but similar in certain respects. So, what keeps bringing you back to Back Bay Mission then?
I think the ability to change people's environment. And I say their environment because their home is their environment. It helps them be stable in their life, and especially poor people that don't and I don't use the word poor in a derogatory way, but people that don't have much cling to the stability of a home. And when you have a home, it's a safe spot, it's a haven. And so for them to have the holes in their walls filled, the holes in their roof filled, the ability to have hot and cold running water, and a bed to sleep in that's dry and warm is paramount. And we take it for granted because we can afford to write the check and go, here's the rent, here's the mortgage payment, I'm gonna go get some groceries, I'm hungry today. I can pay the heat and electric bill. These people are going, I don't know if I can pay the heat and electric bill this week or month. And so it's very important that we as volunteers come and help support people in need.
Yep.
As the Bible has always taught, we need to share better.
Yeah.
We need to share our advantage.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. You've kind of helped me reflect a bit, because here at Back Bay we say that, you know, it's a human right, one of our human rights, obviously clean water and health care, love, compassion, right? And a roof over your head. but I think a roof over your head and a warm bed is probably, might have to add that to the repertoire of what's a human right, because I think it really is, you know. And we appreciate that you come down here consistently over and over again, and you find it refreshing and engaging, and something you're able to take back home with you because of the work you do. The EMT work is pretty stressful, but you come down here and you take some time to work, but also relax and just be present with the good folks of Southern Mississippi. So thank you, Sig. We appreciate you.
Thank you, James.
And thank you for adding to my narrative about a roof over your head and a warm bed. I think we're going to add that, so I definitely appreciate that. So blessings on you, especially as you get ready to travel back to the Northland, to Wisconsin.
Frozen tundra.
We used to call it, yep, frozen tundra, right? Yeah, yeah. And it's a beautiful frozen tundra. It's just different, right?
Yes.
And some people love the cold and the snow, and some people try to avoid the cold and the snow. So it depends upon who you are. So thank you very much for being with us. Appreciate it. And have a great day, folks. And as always, we continue to ask for your support and prayers and time. Y'all come down and participate here and experience what Sig has talked about, and also, of course, your treasures. Thank you.